Jamie, I appreciate you for joining me today and chatting a little bit of Gamecocks football. Jamie Bradford inside the Gamecocks. We talked about this in another video, but not an easy schedule, not a fun couple of years, the last couple of years. But how much pressure truly is there on Coach Beamer to win in this 2024 season?
Well, I think that there's pressure to not let the wheels fall off the bus. You know what I mean? I don't think that there's pressure to go in, which I wish there was. That means your program's really good, but I don't think there's pressure to go out and win 9 games or 8 games or anything like that. I think the real pressure is to, even though you might maybe they go 6-6, maybe they go 5-7, maybe they go 7-5. I don't know. Maybe they do win 8 games. Be sure would be nice to see, but I think the pressure is to prove that, look, we're stable. We just need a couple of answers. Is to not turn in some 4-8, 3-9, something ludicrous. Which, as you pointed out, the schedule would allow for that. This isn't the only team in the SEC. I mean, especially what traditionally was the SEC East. I mean, look at the Gators. I mean,
Yeah.
whoa, wow. So you got Florida, you've got South Carolina, you've got Arkansas, you've got Mississippi State, you've got lots of programs that are. I would bring Oklahoma into this. They might not want to hear that, but I'm not so sure that they're as prepared as Texas is to walk in and win 8 or 9, 10 games. I mean, Texas is going to win 9 or 10 games, in my prediction, at least 10 games. So I think there's a bunch of teams that if the wheels fall off the bus, you could be looking at a tough year. But I don't know that there's just a bunch of pressure to go out and have a special year. I think people understand that this is a process with a first-time head coach, and I think they're going to continue to give him a little bit more time to get it done.
Yeah, first part of the schedule is pretty daunting. Now, there's a couple of games early.
Mhm.
Old Dominion. I think that Kentucky game would be a really important one. I know that's on the
Huge.
road, but if you could get that one, that next stretch after Kentucky, LSU, Ole Miss, Alabama, Oklahoma, you might be looking. Oklahoma would be one, as you mentioned. Can you get that one? Which I think that one's probably a little more winnable than the other ones. Some of those games at home, which is certainly helpful between LSU, Ole Miss. That front half, really, though, those first 7 games are pretty daunting. Back half, maybe a little bit more manageable. A&M at home, Missouri at home, Vandy. I don't know if it matters where you play there. Wofford, and then Clemson away, but the rivalry kind of maybe even some things there, even if Clemson's having a little bit better of a year. So it's almost like if you can just get through that first half and then kind of get to the home stretch. Not that A&M and Missouri are easy by any means, but they're not, Alabama and Ole Miss, I don't think this year.
No, it's if I've learned anything about predicting schedules is you can't. I mean, you just don't ever know. Like, what will this team when they play Missouri be the same team that they were in week 1? And the answer is no, and Missouri won't be either. Missouri, the problem with them is they have had our number, and Eli Drinkwitz takes it very personally here since he was passed over to become our offensive coordinator in Columbia a few years back. And so beating the Gamecocks is something that it's in the pit of his stomach. He enjoys doing that, and he's done it. So give him props there. I think you hit the nail on the head. We've talked about this often. The season isn't over if you get beaten Lexington, but boy, having a decent to good one sure seems like you start to put that in jeopardy, because Kentucky is a program. I give them a lot of credit. They're a program who's kind of been very similar to Carolina over the years, and you'll have a couple of good years, and then you take a few steps back, and you just can't get over that hump. But you're always looking to you want to move yourself into that next bracket of tradition rich programs. And I remember when Carolina did that under Coach Spurrier by beating Florida as often as they were beating the Gators and beating Georgia. They were beating Georgia. They beat them in I know they beat them in 10, 11, 12. They beat them in 2007 in Athens, had a bunch of close games with them, started beating up on Tennessee. And all of a sudden, it was like, okay, we've changed some things here. They beat Kentucky every year back then. Well, South Carolina was that to Kentucky, and Florida was that to Kentucky. And the Wildcats have been able to change that, right? I
Yeah.
mean, I mean, not to deflect here, but is there anybody out there that probably can't lose to Kentucky again other than the Florida Gators? Like, it's eating the Gators alive.
Yeah.
Kentucky's beat us, Vandy's beat us, like they can't handle that stuff. So you want to continue to, like, South Carolina's won the last two over the Wildcats. You want to go get that one to feel again like you're ahead in the pecking order, but also for this season because that's one of those flex games that's going to probably dictate whether you have a good year or whether you have a bad year. And then see the thing is after that is, and I agree. I'm not. You're right. I mean, it's incredibly difficult, but there is opportunity, and I know that that's how they're looking at it on the inside in Columbia. Shane and that staff are going, guys. We've got LSU and Ole Miss at home. Like they're coming here,
Yeah.
and we're probably going to find out by the end of this week that LSU South Carolina game is going to be a night kick on ESPN. And that's going to be, if you win that Kentucky game and you open the year 2-0, TJ, then that's the game that can start to change the perception of, okay, we've got a chance to have actually a pretty good year around here. Or it could be the game that you have to get off the map because you got beat in Lexington and you don't want to fall to 1-2, 0-2 in the SEC. You know what I mean? So that those two games right there, I mean, when you start to think about the record and how seasons play out based on certain sections of your schedule, those two games right there are going to probably tell you whether you're trying to claw back like they were last year or whether you're actually able to have a nice season.
Yeah. You mentioned, the pressure being to not let the wheels come off. What is there a number where you think that South Carolina would have to say, like, man, that we're almost going in reverse at this point? Like, if they go out and win 3 games, do you think they would eventually look to make a change at that point?
There's a lot of pressure with that. There's no doubt. I mean, I don't foresee that. I mean, Old Dominion, Akron, Wofford, Vanderbilt, like,
Yeah, we should
you
have 4 in the bag.
can't lose any of those games, dude. I
Yeah.
mean, and then they they are going to be good enough to win at least another 2. It doesn't mean they're the better football team, but I'm saying on that particular day, they're going to be good enough to win
Yeah.
2 of those remaining 8 games. They just need to do it, and um, they had trouble doing that last year. But I'm telling you, if the key is not the offense, the key is the defense. In a league that increasingly highlights scoring. I mean, think about all the offenses that they're going to face this year, right? I mean, LSU, Ole Miss. Think about how many points Oklahoma put up last year. I don't know how many they're going to put up this year. They do have a 5-star quarterback, but he hadn't played much. You think about clearly Alabama. I'm not so sure they take a step back. I mean, Jalen Milroe is one of my favorite players to watch in the game. You think about Missouri and how many points that they can score. I mean, these teams can score a lot of points. So, you know, I, I I don't know that they can score with those teams when they're at their best. So on the defensive side, Carolina's been very good at creating turnovers under Clayton White. And if you now have better players and you have more depth, and you're actually able to go out and put together a good defensive game and not just be relying on getting 2 or 3 turnovers a ball game, and you can take a couple of touchdowns off the board instead of giving up 42, you're giving up 28 to LSU. You start to give yourself a chance to win some
Sure.
games. So, I mean, I think the defense is what you'll want to circle for this team this year.
If they were to go in a different direction, whether that be this year, 2-3 years down the road, however, how do you think they like the mold, the model that Beamer fits? Is that why they're so patient with him now, or do you think they try and go in a different direction? Maybe that's like a 2-parter. Not saying they're getting rid of him. Again, it would take the wheels falling off, but why do they like Beamer so much? Why are they so patient there? Is that kind of the direction they'd try to go again if he ultimately didn't work out?
Well, I think one of the things about Shane is that he understands the football program, and they know Coach Tanner, Chance Miller, and all those guys that make these decisions and the high level boosters that matters, right? These guys, they know what Shane knows, and Shane knows what they know. And I remember when it took Coach Spurrier probably more. Well, in 2007, South Carolina opened 6-1. Everybody thought, oh, there he goes. There he is. Old Steve's back. He's had some nice wins the last couple of years. They're 6-1. They're number 6 in the country. Here they go. And then they got beat by Vanderbilt en route to a 5-game losing streak to finish the year 6-6. And then it was, oh, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. Get rid of Steve Spurrier. But one of the things that Coach Spurrier had begun to understand that year was the culture of Gamecock football and how fragile it was. And it started to make more sense to him of how you, like, this ain't Florida. You don't just get to go get your pick of the litter and then you just bring in a bunch of talented players and go play ball. Like, you've got to be able to do certain things here from a recruiting standpoint and a developmental standpoint and a coaching standpoint. Like, you got to be able to you got to hire guys who can squeeze all that juice out of that orange. And if you can't win in Columbia until that changes one day. Maybe it never changes. I don't know. So they are all on the same wavelength with that. If they were to have to make it some sort of change, dude, it would have to be somebody. Again, I think that they would probably look for a little bit more experience, somebody who's been a head coach. But that doesn't always work either because, it didn't work with Coach Muschamp. I don't know that you'd call him a successful head coach before he got hired here, but he had been a head coach in the league and that didn't work. But I think it would be a head coach, and I think it'd be somebody that came from more of that mid-major level. And I'll tell you why. Where are we going? We're going to the haves and the have-nots.
Yeah.
And there is a chance, there's a real chance, as we all know, as the separation continues to grow and you got revenue sharing, you got all these things that are changing the game. If you are a mid-major, quote-unquote, group of 5 head coach and you have an opportunity to get to that level, you want to take it. You want to get there. It's not anymore about, I don't know, man. South Carolina might not be the best fit. Maybe I should wait and see if Florida opens next year or Florida State or whatever it is. That's going to start changing a lot of these coaches' minds.
Yeah.
And you get fired so quickly now. Like, it's not like the old days. Like, you can get fired in 2 years, 3 years.
Less than sometimes.
Yeah, dude. So, like, guys are now like, take the money and run, get the buyout put in there and go see what you can do. So I think that's the route that they would end up taking. There's not a fiber in my body that believes that's going to happen, just so you know. But for the sake of the conversation, I think that's where Carolina would lean.
Yeah. I like Beamer. I think he does a lot of things well. I think there have been some, from an outsider, right? Somebody that's not like into every single play or decision or anything. There's been some head scratching stuff that you're just like, oh man. But like you said, that comes with some of the newness. But as far as a person, as far as the way that he does things, I've got a lot of respect for the way that he's building it. And I'm glad that Carolina is giving him the time, right? Like the idea of like, you get 3 years and out, like, I just don't know that works.
Not here.
That's why Florida, I mean, even like UF, right? Like they keep going through and they're probably going to go through it again this year. It's a crap show to see programs do that. So where can people follow you? Where can they find your work?
Yeah, if you download the Chief Sports app, that is our network, the Chief Sports Network. It's free. And so you download that and you'll see all of our programming and contact and everything you can dream of that we do is in that app. And whatever device you've got, just type in Chief Sports, and inside the Gamecocks, all that stuff is under that umbrella right there.
Awesome. We talked about the mid-majors, the realignment, the haves and have-nots. We went further into that conversation in another video, a little bit of conference realignment stuff for you, Gamecocks and other fans watching this. You can click the screen right now to check that out.